Hey everyone, this is not a full review because I'm still working through it. I'm pretty early in the game, but these are my first impressions of Penny Punching Princess by NIS. I did receive this game as a review copy, just so you all know. I didn't have to pay for it, but this is not an ad for the game. Let's start with an overview of the game. It definitely has a sense of humor. This is a game with a sense of humor. Penny Punching Princess will often break the fourth wall from time to time, and I really enjoy that. I like it when a game can make fun of itself. Let's talk about the gameplay real quick. Overall, it's a top-down brawler. The player has a good variety of attacks as well as a dodge, but you also have this really interesting ability which makes this different from most other games, in that the princess has the ability to bribe enemies for money. So when you do that, she pulls out a calculator, totals up what it costs to bribe the monster. The monster then disappears from the board, and you have a new ability on your screen that you can use a different number of times depending on how many points you've put into that, or depending on the monster that you have bribed. It's not just monsters though. You can also bribe traps, which is really powerful. So like if there's a saw blade going back and forth on the screen, you can bribe that for I can't remember off the top of my head, probably 300 coins, and then you are now down 300 coins, but then you kind of kite the other enemies on the board into its path and then hit the button, and it will zip back and forth a few times, doing lots of damage as well as stunning the enemies, which is really, really great. When you are fighting each enemy, it has a hit point bar, of course, and that hit point bar is broken into segments. If you get the hit point bar down to a new segment, the enemy will be stunned for a moment. The game calls this breaking, and this is when you can start to earn some real coin. What you do is spin the right joystick around, and then your character will start to earn extra cash when fighting that enemy. And that cash will come in handy, as you will need the money to bribe enemies to keep up with all of the chaos that is going on screen. Overall for the game, I feel like there's a lot of player choice when it comes to upgrading your character, which I really like. You could put points into getting more hit points. You can put points into having more attack power. You can craft armor using the money that you earn. But in order to craft the armor, you have to meet certain requirements by bribing certain monsters in the game. This requirement will necessitate you going back into previously completed areas in order to hunt down and bribe specific monsters, which is where you're going to get a lot of the replay value from this game. I found myself, even in the first world, going back to previous areas just so I could track down that one more skeleton or one more Devil's Inferno, so that I could make this new armor to make myself more powerful, to make it easier in later levels. So it's a really cool mechanic, and it gives you a lot of reason to go back to stuff that you've already done before, which I like. The graphics have a 16-bit style retro graphics that are really, really common these days. It doesn't bother me that they're common. I like these. I think that the art direction is pretty good. I like the overall graphics look, but there's definitely some strange decisions. For instance, the menu to save your game is just black and white, black background, white text, and it's very different from everything else in the game. It's almost like they just forgot to make a UI for it and slapped it together at the last minute. But for the most part, I think the graphics are very good. The audio is also good. It's not super memorable, but it definitely fits the game. The sound effects are decent. Again, nothing to write home about. I do wish that the game supported HD Rumble. Any game where you are, it's a brawler like this, you definitely want to have HD Rumble so you can feel the impacts of your attacks. And I feel like that's something that is notably missing from this game. As far as the controls go, for the most part, I feel like the controls are pretty tight. However, personally, I am having a lot of trouble with the bribe controls. So like I said earlier, you will bring up a calculator which covers up, I don't know, probably 25% of the screen or maybe 30% of the screen. This is really weird. You can either go through with the D-pad and punch in the buttons of the value that you want. Or if you leave it at 0, you bring up the calculator with your left trigger, and then you pull the right trigger to lock on to a nearby enemy that you're facing. That lock on doesn't often work for me, and I know that the game said that it should, but I'm really having trouble with it. Now, this may be due to my inexperience with the game, but it's very, very frustrating, and I wish that it had, I don't know, maybe slightly different controls, or maybe when you hit that calculator button to bring that out, maybe have time slow down a little bit and allow you to select your target a little bit easier. It's just a nitpicky detail that I'm not super happy with. Speaking of the controls, this is yet another game that feels better with the Joy-Cons than it does with the Pro Controller. In fact, I prefer playing this game in handheld mode than on the TV, which makes sense. The game is made with portability in mind. I'm pretty sure that it's coming to the Vita as well, or perhaps it already is on the Vita. I'm not sure one way or the other. I can't remember, but I definitely remember seeing like a picture of a Vita with Penny Punching Princess on the screen. So I think it's coming to the Vita at the same time. So this is definitely a game that's made with portable systems in mind. And it shows. Well, like when I was playing on my Switch, and I liked it a lot more when I had it in my hand. So this is one of those games that you definitely want to get on the eShop so that you always have it with you. When you die in the game, you get right back into the action really, really fast, which I like a lot. However, you don't start with full health after you die. And this drives me just a little bit crazy, as you could get to a save point, but your hit points are just so low that you can't continue, or you get pulled into like this death loop where you're constantly going up against the same mobs and dying. And for me, I ran into this issue where as I was playing, all I could think of is, okay, this time I'm going to be able to get it. This time I'm going to be able to beat this level. This time I can do it. And inevitably I would keep dying. And yes, I can leave and go back to my castle and do some training, but it's really frustrating. And what I wish is that when you died, you came back to life at the save point with full health. I think that would have made things so much better, because getting caught in a death loop is extremely frustrating. The game is definitely challenging. I've died a lot so far, but I've also had some fun. I thought the tutorial was a little confusing. However, I went back and played the tutorial a second time, and everything made a lot more sense. Like I said earlier, I'm still having trouble with the calculator controls. I really, really like the humor in the game. I think that there's a lot of very funny moments, but at the same time, I don't like the way that the characters talk in the game. It's written so that when you are reading it to yourself, you would kind of hear an accent. And I know that they're going for this accent, but it kind of made it hard for me to understand what they were saying. When I was playing this for the first time, I was just kind of reading things out loud, as I sometimes do when I record footage. And the reason I do that is so that I leave the text on the screen long enough for other people to read it. So I read it out loud, and I was really stumbling over my words because of the way that the text was written. So that kind of bothered me quite a bit. Overall, I would say Penny Punching Princess is worth checking out. I really wish that they had a demo for it, and maybe they will have a demo for it. Especially if you're looking for a brawler. There don't seem to be a lot of brawlers on the Switch, especially not top-down brawlers. I know that some of the Neo Geo games have come to the Switch, and those are more side-scrolling brawlers. But this is really a game that feels like it's on its own. And for the most part, the game is fun. Now, if you are prone to raging at a death in the games, then you may want to avoid it, because if you're anything like me, you're going to die a lot. I think that what is it called again? Penny Punching Princess. That is hard to say. I think that overall, It's a good game, and I'm looking forward to playing more of it, especially handheld, because that's really where it seemed to shine for me. Let me know what you think of the game in the comment section below, and be sure to check out my podcast all about Nintendo over at runjumpstomp.com. And of course, stop by the Twitch stream sometime, and that's over at twitch.tv/runjumpstomp. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.